Newbloom, Membrion CEO, discusses the company's wastewater technology solution, based on ceramic ion exchange membranes, described as a game changer for creating circularity of valuable resources for challenging wastewater. In practice, this means that both valuable materials can be reclaimed from the wastewater stream and recycled, at the same time as the treated water itself can be reused. The semiconductor is one industry where pilot trials are proving the technology in real-world environments.
Okay, so Membrion, you have just fairly recently, I think, finished your Series B funding round.
Yep.
So I guess it'd be good to start with that, but also backtrack a little bit for those of us, including myself, who maybe don't know much about the company, just a bit about what, why, and when it was formed, and any sort of milestones. Or I guess is still fairly early days, but what's been achieved so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did just close our Series B. It's 12.5 million is what we raised. Really excited about the new group of investors that we've got on board. Membrion, we've been around for we're about 7 years old at this point. Originally a spin out from the University of Washington. Been whole kind of history of the company has been focused on deploying this new membrane technology based on ceramic materials that can go into really harsh environments and do some really unique separations processes. And so to date, we've had the opportunity to spin the technology out of the lab, done prototyping, proof of concept, pilot manufacturing, and now we are moving towards first commercial deployments of the technology, which is very exciting. And yeah, this Series B funding is really kind of the helping us to continue to get more of these commercial deployments in place. We're very fortunate to have a great customer base. Biggest segment we're working with is definitely semiconductor, but facilities in automotive and metal finishing and other industries as well, all who have kind of the link of challenging wastewater.
Yeah. And in terms of the technology itself, I think you describe it as electro desalination membrane. So I know you won't give away your secret sauce, but
sure.
Can you give us a bit of an overview of what the technology is, what the component parts or whatever, and what it actually does?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the way the most traditional water filtration technology, especially membrane technologies, work on a pressure basis, meaning that, you've got a certain pore size, you push really hard, and, your water and maybe smaller things go through and all the big stuff gets stuck behind. Ours is quite a bit different in that we aren't using pressure. We're actually using electricity and an electric field to selectively draw ions across the membrane. So it's this principle of opposites attract. So if you have a positively charged ion, it will actually move across our membranes into a small volume concentrate stream. And so what we're doing is we're actually taking the wastewater and we're selectively removing the problematic salts, metals, and minerals from that wastewater stream and leaving everything else behind. And that's a really big deal in applications where you have toxic or hazardous or regulated metals, where those are the primary concern that you're trying to address. You're above a discharge standard or an environmental standard, and you have to be able to reduce those. But you've got a bunch of other stuff in the water that makes it difficult to treat. We can selectively remove and concentrate those metals, even enabling their eventual productive reuse, because we're able to bring them from fairly low concentrations up to very, very high concentrations where they're much easier to work with.
Okay, yeah. So because I know you mentioned about the recycling, and if it's a stupid question, apologies, but I'd immediately thought recycling, you're talking about cleaning up the water so that can be recycled.
Yeah.
But maybe that's possible. But you're also talking about you're capturing these materials and they can potentially be, so it's a sort of double recycling.
It's a double dip. That's right. Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. It's really, for us, we're very much a circularity focused company. It's how do we create circularity of critical resources, water certainly being a critical resource we have to manage well, but a lot of these metals and minerals are also incredibly valuable to us, and being able to return them into a productive way back into the supply chain is incredibly valuable. And we're certainly not the only technology that's used in order to get those metals back to their kind of useful states, but we do allow standard technologies to be utilized because we're able to get them into those higher concentration range where they can be productive.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So in terms of the alternatives, more traditional or different approaches, how would you characterize yours? I mean, is it more accurate? Is it more cost efficient? Just the ways in which you think your solution maybe has an edge on other approaches people might be aware of or using?
Sure. Yeah. So, water is every water source is different, and so every source is going to might have a different solution that benefits. I'd say for a lot of these really challenging wastewater streams, the traditional approaches to deal with them really fall in three categories. You are either evaporating the water, so you're boiling it and leaving behind whatever else is there. You are chemically precipitating the ions that are in there. So it's usually the addition of chemicals and flocculants, and you create a sludge and you precipitate out that sludge. Or you're using some sort of adsorbing material where you're actually trying to capture those ions onto something, and then you have to deal with them after they're done with. So those are the kind of three that are there, and those technologies tend, each have their pros and cons, but they tend to either be very time intensive, labor intensive, which is where chemical precipitation is, very energy intense, which is where evaporation is, or very resource intense, which is where the adsorbing materials are. And so for us, really, we come in with an approach that is a very balanced approach where you don't have major labor costs, major energy costs, or major resource costs that go along with it. And we're actually able to, in a lot of ways, partner with these existing technologies that facilities are using to make them much more efficient. So for example, with a facility that's boiling their wastewater, in that facility, we can, by using our technology, we can actually shrink the volume of that hazardous wastewater into a much smaller component. So then the amount of water you have to boil is reduced by 80 to 90%. And so you see massive energy costs that come along with that, as an example. And so in a lot of ways, we look at how we can partner with the existing infrastructure to make it more operationally efficient, help free up additional capacity while still hitting those elements of regulatory compliance that facilities need to have.
And just on that point, follow up. So for those with existing technologies, as you say, you can enhance that. If someone is building a brand new plant, would your technology, if you like, stand alone and do a good job? Or
yep.
So it's a way to market. You're saying to people, yes, you've already got this, rather than rip and replace. You can add some of our technology and get some benefits without too much.
Exactly. Yeah, and we find that that's a fairly low risk approach, right? We're a new technology. A lot of facilities don't necessarily want to rip out what is already working today and put a brand new technology in there. That's just, we're up for it, but that's a lot of risk that facilities take on. So we like to approach it in a very de-risked way, where we say, hey, look, we can with a very compact system, we can work with your existing infrastructure, make it a lot more efficient, provide a really strong ROI, often less than 2 or 3 year ROI on the projects that we're on, make it more efficient, make it more sustainable. And then when you build your next facility, in that case, you can now, instead of having to buy 3 or 4 pieces of equipment, you can just buy ours, reduce the capital costs, and have the operational savings in the long run. So we see it as basically a way, and really Membrion is built around how do we de-risk and build that trust with really practical solutions for facilities. And then as we gain that trust through implementation, we believe that in the long term, we'll have the greenfield opportunities that will be there for us.
And I know you describe it as something of a game changer when it comes to the sort of circularity for resource, and as I've found out, it's both the water and potentially the materials involved. I'm just curious. I mean, is the solution therefore only relevant to what we call the harsh wastewater environments, or could you foresee a time when because obviously the municipal market is a huge opportunity for you?
Massive.
Is that
Yeah.
something you can see as being a benefit, or are you a bit too specialized, shall we say, for them to be interested? Just your thoughts on that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think in the long arc of the company, I think that will be applicable to municipal, will be applicable to more traditional desalination processes. What I would say, today is that in a lot of cases, what we're looking at is like where is the existing technology really not good enough? And I think that if you look at kind of more traditional wastewater, municipal wastewater treatment or more traditional desalination, in a lot of those cases, the existing technology, while it may have its drawbacks, it's good enough in most of the cases that it does there. And a lot of the harsh wastewater facilities really struggle, right? These are extremely expensive pieces of equipment to run that's there. They're really not good for the environment. They kind of go against the ESG goals that are in place, and they often are constraining the facility's operational capability. So I think in the long run, we will see kind of more general use of the technology, especially as the way that regulations go, they almost never get easier to meet. They always get more stringent, and I think that the priorities towards having more energy efficient, higher water recovery systems is where, in general, our resource management is going to go. And so, in the long run, I think that we will become increasingly needed in these broader, more common use cases for wastewater treatment. But right now, we've got a great fit in these really challenging opportunities.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier the semiconductor industry, and I've got a particular interest in that as well as the water industry. So if you can outline what you're doing, and I don't know whether you can name any names because obviously the semiconductor folks are always a bit secretive about what they're up
Yeah.
to. And also I'm wondering, with the CHIPS Act in the US, etc., and the building program, do you anticipate some not only retrofitting, if that's the right term, to existing wastewater facilities, but you see an opportunity as and when these so many new fabs are being built out, your technology has a role to play there as well?
Sure. Yeah. So you're right. When we work with semiconductor facilities, one of the first things we sign is an NDA with all of them. I can't, I am fortunate to be able to disclose that in our Series B, we did have Samsung Ventures and Lamb Capital join our Series B investment rounds. We certainly do have investment support from the semiconductor industry. As we work with facilities, probably the most common application that we're working on right now is in the space of copper wastewater. We do things metal wastewater more generally, but copper is a big one that these facilities are leveraging copper in their processes, and they generate a significant quantity of wastewater that is regulated, that has to be treated before it's discharged. And in a lot of cases, the facilities also would like to see that copper reused for beneficial reuse. And so in those cases, those wastewater streams tend to be very harsh, meaning they're low pH. They often have oxidizers that are in them. They'll have particles that are in them, both nano and larger. They'll have chelating agents that can foul up the surface of materials. And so these are just streams that have, because the copper itself is actually not all that difficult to remove. It's all this other stuff that's around it that makes it really challenging. And so, for us to be able to go in and just selectively take the copper out and leave the other stuff behind, that, honestly is not all that terrible or difficult to get rid of, but with the copper in there, makes it much more challenging. And so we're able to, that's really in the semiconductor space where we're helping them to be able to focus is on providing a lower cost, more sustainable approach to their copper wastewater management.
And in terms, I think at the start of the conversation, you mentioned you'd got as far as pilot plants. So is it fair to assume that such things exist within the semiconductor industry? You're partnering with various fabs or semiconductor companies to trial this, and also to what you said earlier, is this being I suppose retrofitted, I'm using the word, to existing? Is that what you're doing? You're enhancing their existing wastewater technology to bring the benefits you've outlined. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yep, we're working with them to enhance the existing infrastructure, make them more efficient, help them save on their operating costs, reduce their labor burden, which is a big challenge for a lot of facilities as well.
And in terms of other industries, are you at that same level, same stage of pilot plants within various other industries? Anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've done pilots within automotive, with companies that deal with cooling towers, metal plating opportunities. We've done stuff in that's more food and beverage oriented, where you've got high organic content. So we definitely get pulled into quite a few different applications, where we're piloting, we're proving out that the technology works with this similar strategy of enhancing the other technologies that are around it, offering. We often look at ourselves as a bolt on to improve the efficiency of what already exists today.
And in terms of the pilot plants, sort of feedback from customers, have they been surprised at the results they've achieved? Was it much as they thought? Just reaction, I suppose. Pilot plant customer reaction to you've obviously told them what you can do, and they may have
Yep.
been a bit skeptical, and then you've actually presumably proved just yeah.
Yeah. Most people are pretty skeptical of the claims that we make, which is one of the reasons that we actually will go and do on-site bench scale testing with them for free on the front end of this. Is basically saying like, hey, look, like we're not going to charge you anything until we've proven to you that this works, and it works with your particular water, and it can hit the target that you care about. We'll send it out to a third party lab, and we'll do that. And we've got the track record to be very successful in proving that out. And yeah, most of the time facilities are very surprised because many water treatment technologies that are dealing with these ions are just so delicate, because you're trying to remove something that's a fraction of a nanometer in size from a wastewater stream. And so, most of the time when you're down at that size scale, every little detail matters. And it's, that's the advantage of bringing a ceramic material down to that size scale where we're separating ions. As ceramics are just, they're so robust that it gives us the ability to take a lot more of a beating when it comes to those co-contaminants than you would typically find. And so yeah, we get a lot of very pleasantly surprised people, and I think that's part of the fun for us, is getting to show people like, hey, yeah, look, there's a new option that didn't exist before.
And you mentioned that obviously the ceramics are particularly sort of well capable of taking this beating, but is there a sort of a finite life, and you therefore have a sort of sales and support, a sort of after service support, so that you can replace or maintain, etc.
Yep.
The plant over time? Is that part of the plan as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely part of the plan as well. So we definitely, especially for us with a new technology, regardless of how long the membrane lasts, we want to make sure that it's performing at the expected level over the entire lifetime. So yeah, when we partner with facilities, at the front end, we talk about, hey, look, we're gonna have performance specifications as long as the water that's coming in is within a certain range of expectations. We feel confident we're going to be able to treat it to this level. And if we aren't able to continue to maintain that level at the expected cleaning, then we'll swap out modules. We'll help make sure that things run at that level, because for us, it's really critical as a new technology that people feel comfortable and confident. And part of that is our ability to make sure that things work. And I think with any new technology, we're only starting to build that database of long operating history in a variety of different wastewater sources, where we can truly predict out, the full life cycle in any given application. And so in a lot of ways, we find ways within how we sell and support these products to take that risk off of our customers' plate. But yeah, there is going to be a finite life. They are going to have to be replaced. And those are things that we work through at kind of the bench and pilot scale testing, where we're able to provide, here's what it's going to cost from a continuing kind of maintenance perspective on these systems.
And one other thing I'm curious, in terms of the footprint of your solution, because obviously a lot of the time these wastewater plants, they don't have necessarily vast amounts of space around them.
Yeah.
So how easy is it for you to to fit your system in and around what's already there in terms of the wastewater?
So Yeah, so this is one of the ways that it's really helpful that we don't have high pressure systems, which is much more traditional for desalination. It's all very low pressure, and because it's module based, we can fit in some very tight spaces. And so in a lot of the facilities that we're working at, you're absolutely right. It's very well planned out, well thought out. Every inch has its purpose already, and often you're trying to slot into a fairly tight space. And I think that that's really with, for us, we've got channel partners who are happy to be creative and flexible in how that system gets built out for the facility to be able to leverage it. But yeah, our systems tend to be very compact. For the amount of water that we're able to treat, it's almost always it's almost always the same size as you would have for a traditional desalination system, but most of the infrastructure that's in place around ion exchange resins or chemical precipitation or evaporation tends to be really large pieces of equipment. So relative to what they're using today, it's much, much smaller, more compact, which is why we can usually find a space for it.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, in terms of turning pilot projects into sort of proper customers, however you term it,
Yeah.
Converting pilots into contracts, is where are you? Do you think you're quite close? You've had some good pilot projects and would be optimistic that you'll be gaining some contracts, from whether it's a
Yeah.
semiconductor industry in the near future. Is that is that what's likely to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to date, I believe we're running our eighth pilot project. We have clear commercial visibility into four of the projects that we've ran to date, and the other ones are likely to just be longer term. A lot of times we have to fit within the budgetary cycles of facilities and things like that. So sometimes, of course, we always like to be able to move very quickly in getting things deployed. We're a startup. But a lot of the companies we work with are large and have multi-year planning cycles and things like that. So sometimes the length of time between piloting and implementation is longer than we want. But we've basically, of the 8 pilots that we ran, 7 of the 8 have been successful in hitting the key performance indicators that the clients have set. And the 8th one was a phenomenal learning opportunity for us on scoping projects on the front end. So yeah, we've got a great track record. We know where we fit. We know where our limitations are. We're always very clear with clients on the front end. If there's something in the water that we just know is not going to be a good fit for us, or we can't hit their spec, we're thankful to have enough sales activity that we help point them in the right direction of someone who can help them with their challenges.
And obviously, I'm speaking to you in the States, and I'm here in the UK. So
Mhm.
one of the obvious questions, I guess, is it only available in the US at the moment? If it is, what plans do you have to roll it out, or is it already available? Where are people able to access the solution at the moment?
Yep. So North America is our current focus, and will be our current focus for at least another 18 to 24 months. We certainly do intend to expand into Europe. In fact, our lead investors from the most recent fundraising round, our Series B, are based out of the Netherlands. For us, we tend to do really well anytime there are stringent regulations that require very strict wastewater treatment. And in that case, Europe is actually, in many cases, a better fit for our technology than North America. So really, it's just the legacy of this is where the technology was born. This is where we're getting our initial footing. But we certainly expect to be available in Europe. We do have channel partners that we work with that do have presence in Europe, and so it's certainly we are starting to evaluate selectively projects in Europe if there's something that's a really good fit for us, knowing that we are planning to be over there. We are talking with folks. We have a handful of facilities that we're having discussions with where it does seem like there's a particularly unique fit and an urgent need. And so on a case-by-case basis, we are looking at projects in Europe, but for the most part, our focus is certainly on North America.
But presumably, to that point, I mean, back to the semiconductor industry, plenty of companies have global presence.
Exactly. Yep.
Therefore, if you've done a good job in the States, not just Europe, but I'm imagining even in Asia,
In Asia as
an
well.
obvious place to say, hey, what can we use your solution there? So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, in terms of any other future plans, I mean, the technology you've developed, do you need to refine, or is there an ongoing process trying to refine it, or is it pretty much you've built it, you're happy with it, and for the foreseeable future, that is, what you're offering? Just any, thoughts you can share as to what else you're looking, or if you're looking at any other technologies, or is this going to keep you? It sounds as if you're pretty busy anyway, but I'm just wondering if there are, other things that you are looking at doing, should we say?
Yeah, so I would say that we certainly are plenty busy with the technology as it exists today. I mean, we're always interested in how we can continue to improve, and in particular, what's going to continue to deliver value to those end customers. And so, for example, we do have a collaboration in place with W.L. Gore and Associates, who have the capability of making an ultra thin version of our membranes, which allow us to treat wastewaters that are more concentrated, higher TDS. And we're able to do that much more energy efficient than we would with the core product that we manufacture. We have the ability to tune and optimize the pore size of our membranes, which allows us to do more selective ion transport, which are areas that we're looking at in the future. So I do think that we'll continue to have new tailored products that we release to the market that do roll out and solve specific problems for various industries. But I would say that in the near term, for us, it's really just we've got a great opportunity. We're excited about where we're at. We're excited to help companies that have needs, and so for us, it's just finding more of those companies.
Okay, I mean, it's been fantastic to chat to you, and it's very, as I was telling you before we started the proper interview, I've got a foot in the water industry and a foot in the semiconductor industry, so you've got plenty of opportunity, and I say it's great to chat to you and wish you all the best. But for now, at least, thanks very much for your time, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate the opportunity.